Hi there, and welcome to Wow Talk. My name is Donna.
And my name is Darlene.
And today, for the first time, we have a very special guest joining us. And I will have Dr. Darlene Gustin introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Donna. So I wanted to bring Felicia DeCandia on as a guest. And she is a lady who works in my clinic who offers a modality that is very unique. That is something I didn't understand at first, and I'm referring a growing number of patients to this therapy. And it's this undiscovered gem in alternative healthcare. And Paula is amazing at her skill at using this modality. And I have experienced the sessions myself, and that won me over instantly. And I have to share this with our listeners and with everybody because it's the need for a modality like this is huge, because it is fantastic for conditions such as anxiety or post-traumatic stress or physical symptoms that could be coming from emotional causes. We use the word psychosomatic or body-mind. And so when you're really not feeling good, but the medical doctor doesn't have a clear physical diagnosis. And I came up with my favorite way of describing body talk, which is that it lifts the weight off your shoulders. So warm welcome to Felicia DeCandia. Please tell us all about body talk today.
Well,
hi Donna, very nice to meet you, and Darlene, thank you so much for your wonderful introduction. Very kind, and I'm humbled by your honest introduction about body talk and your experience with it. So body talk, what's body talk? So body talk is a holistic therapy that addresses all systems in the body. It was developed about 30 years ago by a chiropractor who studied many other holistic alternative medicine therapies. And yeah, that's very much in a nutshell what body talk is.
Okay, well, it is lovely to have you here and lovely to meet you. So what exactly happens in an appointment?
Okay, so you come to see me and you'll have a questionnaire to fill out, and then I will have you lay back on your back on a massage table. You keep all your clothes on. You're welcome to keep even the shoes on. You'll have your hands beside you. We start breathing, and there are 3 steps that happen. So I ask, I balance, and I resynchronize. So basically, I ask the body in order to have access to the energy systems in the body, and then that gives me the response to all these series of questions that I have. And once I get in contact with the energy circuits in the body and I ask the questions, we then tap the body physically. So I tap your head, I tap the heart, I tap the belly button. So when we tap the head, basically we engage the brain to, it's almost like a computer reset, if you may. And then we tap the heart to save the information or the change that happened or the balance that just was restored. And then we tap the gut to ask the gut to follow suit, because the gut has a mind of its own. So we ask the gut to digest, assimilate, and integrate all these changes in the body.
Okay, so what we're doing then is you are, in essence, clearing those pathways. You are allowing the communication again between the cells and the body. So it all communicates with each other. This is what your role is.
Very much so, yes. Okay. You do, by tapping, you resynchronize the internal communication pathways within the body, in the body-mind complex.
Okay. Which would then allow things to flow better and would give us all-round better health, is what I'm thinking, both mentally and physically.
Absolutely, and mentally, emotionally, physically,
exactly,
spiritually, on all levels.
Yeah, all
absolutely.
That, all levels. Okay, and then what was that third? Did we already talk about the third?
Yes, we did. So basically, let me recap. So you ask, you balance, you resynchronize, you tap, so that way you can save that information, and then you integrate the change. And then you ask to ensure that this is all done with this particular formula. And then you go back to another question. And then you continue until the body says, okay, I've had enough of today. Now we have to do it another time for the next session. And whenever the next session is, we'll determine based on the questions again.
Okay. So do you have people that come regularly?
So most often than not, in the beginning, depending on a lot of different factors, because again, everyone is different. So,
Yes.
But most often than not, in the beginning, the first couple of months, you may have to come every 2-3 weeks. After which the body maintains the change for a longer period of time, and you may have to come once a month or once every 6 weeks. And then eventually once every few weeks or every few months.
Okay. So may I ask you then, who are most of your patients? Do they get in touch with you because they are feeling something emotionally or physically or anything at all? They just sort of feel out of sorts? Because what would motivate somebody to call you up and book an appointment?
So Darlene, this is what I'm going to bring you in. Only because in the beginning, when I started working with you, I remember clearly, because you're such scientific driven doctor, when I mentioned body talk, for you was like, not really speaking to me. And it wasn't until the moment that I've noticed that you walked into the clinic once and you were not yourself. And then finally you gave body talk a chance. So I'm going to let you maybe explain in your own way how that worked for you.
For sure. I was resistant because I couldn't understand it. And even when I refer patients, I still struggle to explain what I'm sending them for. But I know from my own personal experience, that particular day I came to work and I was feeling very lightheaded. I thought I was going to fall off my chair. And physically speaking, in medical ways, I'm thinking, I'm not dehydrated. It's not my blood sugar. I checked my blood pressure. I didn't kink my neck. I knew there was no physical reason, but I did not feel good. But what my coworkers didn't know was that I had had a big emotional shock the night before, and it was very much affecting me physically, and they saw it on me. I couldn't hide it. And that day I thought, fine, just make this go away. And I went through a body talk session, and I lay there and I had the tapping, and during the session, it was very relaxing. I don't know if I was in deep meditation or if I actually fell asleep, but just naturally just lifted out of that by the end of the session. And at the end of the session, I can truly say it was like a light switch, that the weight lifted off my shoulders. The physical symptom was 100% gone immediately. And I felt strong again. I got my resilience back. So I think it's great for these times when there's so much stress and anxiety, and that it's pushing our buttons physically. So with the pandemic, people are stressed out. Some people are having migraines. Some people, it's affecting their sleep or their blood pressure. So I think a random person could come in and be screened in a body talk way, and I'm sure we'd find some vulnerability, but usually it's a patient who's suffering from something, whether it's emotional, which was my initial experience.
May I ask you something? Did you know that it was something emotional yourself? Like you were saying there was nothing physical that day, but were you still feeling the effects of the emotion from the night before?
I should have known better. So it was just so dramatic physically. And I thought, no, getting upset never affected me this physically ever before. So
Sure.
I didn't really give it the weight that it deserved. And
Okay.
I should know better, right? So anyway.
You are human.
I am
You're an
human.
incredible doctor. And that's an incredible story, though. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Very,
thank you.
very interesting.
Yeah. So
yeah.
basically, coming back to the thank you, Darlene. That was it was your experience. There is no right and wrong here.
Yes.
So, truthfully, majority of the time, we do not know when we need help. So we say like, what? How do I know that I need to come and see you? It's basically realizing that there is something that you feel out of sorts. That's kind of how I like to say it, because you
Yes.
go through different tests, you go to different doctors, you take different medication, and maybe you get better, but then somehow you default back to this state that you don't even know what is causing it. And the doctors can't find any means to what the problem is, because every test comes out normal. But
Yes.
yet you know that something is not right.
And in our profession, we use the word dysfunction. So there's different
Yes.
levels of being sick. So there's very pathology level, someone who's diagnosed with a concrete physical diagnosis that shows in their blood work and on their x-ray. But there's a lighter version of being sick that is dysfunction. So naturopaths attract a lot of patients who are feeling very unwell, very symptomatic, and they've seen medical doctors, and the medical doctor says, well, your tests are normal, so it's okay. You know, it must all be in your head, so go home.
We hear that
Right?
a lot, don't we?
Yes. So
yeah.
naturopaths get a lot of those patients who fall through the cracks, and also a lot of patients who are diagnosed with a syndrome. I shouldn't even have used the word diagnosed, because a syndrome is a collection of symptoms that come as a package, and there's an absence of a diagnosis, but it does get somewhat acknowledged by the medical profession. For example, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome. So someone with irritable bowel syndrome has a normal colonoscopy, has normal blood work, but they might have diarrhea 10 times a day and 5 seconds after every meal. That's highly dysfunctional, right? But in the case of body talk, it could filter out and say, it's emotional. Yes, it started when you went to Mexico and you had food poisoning, but you also called off your engagement on that trip to Mexico. So there could be a physical component, the parasite in the water in Mexico, and the emotional component. And so body talk is really good at finding where those connections are and freeing the person from the dysfunction, whether that dysfunction is chemical, like blood sugar, or physical, like feeling head spins and dizzy, or emotional, where the person has no tolerance to little things like road rage, or that could be big too.
Yeah, no.
Right?
But we know what you mean.
But
Yes.
something like road rage would be great for body talk. And I've been referring a lot of patients for post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
So same thing, all these veterans, and now with war and COVID, there's a lot of post-traumatic stress, but there's no test for it. There's no blood test, but it could be bad enough that someone physically can't go to work.
Yes.
So I was going to say that sometimes consciously we block things, unconsciously we block things out for the purpose of surviving. It's a surviving mechanism. So we do not become aware of it. However, that affects us, because the truth is everything is in everything and everything affects everything. So as Dr. Gustin says here, the truth is it doesn't have to be physically a physical problem. It could be emotional problem. It could be something that has happened even in the past, 30 years of your life, that somehow it impacts you now, because something like post-traumatic stress disorder makes you breathe or smell something or hear something that you react to.
Yes, it
So
triggers.
So what I find with body talk, and I'm fascinated by it, is that it enables, or it teaches you how to become emotional in tune with yourself and with the environment we live in.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. I cannot wait for my appointment. And is there anything else that either yourself, Dr. Gustin, or you, Felicia, is that
Yes,
correct?
thank you.
Okay. Would like to add before we sign off?
So just as a recap, I will say this: body talk, it's a holistic therapy that addresses all systems in the body. It's addressing you as a whole, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It implies that we ask questions, we balance, we resynchronize the internal communication pathways, allowing your body to function optimally, and we tap the body in a specific way, addressing the 3 brains. The brain, which is resetting the computer, if you may, the heart, saving the information, and the gut to integrate, digest, and assimilate the changes. And yeah, pretty much that's body talk in a nutshell. And what I want to say last is that remember, your health is your wealth, and if you take care of your health today, you will not be forced to take care of your disease tomorrow. And what I like about body talk primarily is that one session builds upon the next, because remember, when we tap the heart, we save the information, and it's almost like that, when you save your documents on a computer for later use. So if you save it, it's there, it doesn't go anywhere, so you continue working on it from where you left off. So yeah,
I love all that. That was great. Thank you. And we will include all of your information as well in the description. So if anybody would like to contact you and book an appointment or have questions, please send us your feedback. There's places where you can leave comments, and also you could contact directly as well.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming today, our very first guest. It was lovely having you here.
Oh, and this is amazing, because I wanted to say this as well. I forgot to mention it. It is my very first podcast. So we are both celebrating your very first guest and my very first podcast. Thank you very much, both of you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Okay, bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.